Hi there, gorgeous! Hope you're having a fabulous day. If you are new to the channel, welcome. I make videos like this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if you'd like to be notified of new content like this, please subscribe, hit that bell, and thank you if you do. For those who don't know me, I have a historically accurate makeup series on this channel that I have been compiling over the past 6 or 7 years, I want to say. I can't remember exactly how long it's been, but I've gone through nearly every decade, researched the decade, found out different trends, different techniques, etc. that was done with makeup during that time, and then recreated a authentic as possible tutorial, and they've always done extremely well. I know a lot of you really look forward to seeing those videos, and that series was inspired by a friend of mine, Lillian, hi Lillian, who actually asked me one time, hey, how did they do their makeup in the 40s? Do you know? I would love to see that. And the second that I made that video, it received such a tremendously positive response that the series took off, and I am still making them today. I wanted to go into a different direction with this series though, and explore other topics besides just tutorials and recreations. Don't get me wrong, I'm still going to be doing those, but I love ideas like this, topics like this. So today's video is about the 10 innovations that changed makeup history. If you love history and you love makeup, you're going to love this series. And there's just so much fascinating information that I found for this video, and I'm really excited to share it with you here today, and I hope that you will find it enjoyable. What is an innovation? It is a new method, a new product, or a new idea. And so all of the facts that I'm sharing with you here today will echo one of those three attributes as it pertains to makeup history. Beginning with 1915, this is when you see the first lipstick tube invented. You may be asking yourself, okay, before that, how did they carry their lipstick around? I was really interested in finding that out, and it turns out they sold them in paper tubes, silk papers, or small pots. This is right before the explosion of the Roaring '20s, so dark red became the most popular color that you could find in lipstick at this particular time. The Cupid's bow lip shape, inspired by Clara Bow, also became very popular. It's one of the most memorable trends from the 20s, and during this time it became widely acceptable to apply lipstick in public and at lunch, but never at dinner. Why? I don't know. I couldn't find out why, but I thought that was rather interesting. And with the onset of the Roaring '20s, you see an explosion in cosmetics manufacturing and mass marketing in America. Why during this time period? There are a number of different theories why. Some of them that I read said that it was attributed to Hollywood movies that were becoming more popular during this time. World War I forced women back into the workforce, forced husbands and fathers into war, so women were left by themselves with their own income, and they didn't have anybody telling them what they could and couldn't buy. In 1923 is when we see the very first eyelash curler, and this was created by the Lash company. The earliest patent is by Charles W. Stickle, and you could see how rough it looked. It was oftentimes referred to as the bear trap. And I don't know about you, but that's a pretty scary looking device that I don't know if I'd be comfortable putting that near my eyes. And despite its rough appearance, it was offered in 2 different models. The first one was a gold finish curler that had some rather fancy packaging. They said it was packaged in a blue Morocco leather case, and that retailed for $5. The second one had a silver finish on it and came in a cardboard box, and you could buy that one for $2. This first model of the eyelash curler was really only on the market for about a year, and then it was replaced with a more sophisticated version in 1924. And this version is the one that most closely resembles the modern day eyelash curler that we've all come to know and love. And that was patented again by Charles Stickle and William McDonnell. And this newer model was also significantly cheaper compared to the Lash eyelash curler, and by the end of 1924, Lash was offering their eyelash curler for $1. You want a fascinating read, and I don't have it all in one article, or I would link it below for you, but if you go back and you research the eyelash curler and just look at the evolution of it from 1923 until now, it is fascinating to see all the little minor improvements that they have made over these past few decades to come to know this simple little tool that we use today. Now, in 1932, the country is in the middle of the Great Depression. There are a couple of brothers by the name of Charles and Joseph Revson, and they pair up with a chemist by the name of Charles Lachman, and they founded the company Revlon. Now, what they did is they discovered a unique manufacturing process for creating nail polish. And instead of using dyes like other companies had been doing previously, they started to use pigments. And this one simplistic innovation catapulted them to become a multi-million-dollar corporation within just 6 years. And by 1940, they had a full manicure line and they had begun to add lipsticks and continued adding from there to become the brand that we know them as today. But it's really fascinating to me that they started out with nail polish. They didn't exactly start out with makeup, and they were the forerunners for nail polish as we know it today. In 1935, we start to see Technicolor being more widely used in Hollywood films, but it wasn't exactly welcomed with open arms by actors and actresses of the time, and a lot of them absolutely refused to do any Technicolor films, purely based on the fact of how poorly it made their makeup look on camera under studio lights. Now, during this time, grease paint and powder were the preferred mediums for makeup because of how flawless they made the skin look, even on up-close photography. But with Technicolor, it created an unsightly sheen on the face, and it actually reflected colors from the set around them and would give them this weird tinge on the skin. It was very unflattering, and so you can see why a lot of them were so resistant to this new method of shooting film. The solution came with Max Factor, who created Pancake Makeup, but he was not the one in charge of the project. He had actually given this project to his son Frank, and he is the one who spearheaded the whole thing. Pancake Makeup was very popular because it was a water-based, high pigment powder. Like grease paint, it was completely sweat resistant, but it was matte. So it eliminated that sheen problem that a lot of actors and actresses were facing, and bonus points, it was much easier and much quicker to apply. And Max Factor was completely against selling this to the mass market, but it was his son Frank who saw the potential. And so it was released in February 1938, and shortly thereafter produced more revenue for the company than the combined revenues of all of their other cosmetic products. In 1957 is when we see the first automatic mascara, or what we know today to be a traditional modern day mascara tube. This was introduced by Helena Rubinstein. Not too long after Helena Rubinstein released theirs, Maybelline also came out with their own version called Magic Mascara, and it was at this time that cream, stick, and cake formulas from the past began to really fall away. Now, this is really interesting. For our modern day cosmetics, I was shocked by this next fact I'm getting ready to share with you. Helena Rubinstein's formula was waterproof, but to attain that waterproof quality, they used turpentine. Turpentine! And it's almost as bad as the lead makeup that they were wearing back in the day, knowing full well that it would kill them. Have they learned nothing from history? My gosh. But in 1958, Revlon came out with a product called their Brush On Mascara, and this was the first automatic mascara that did not contain turpentine to make the formula waterproof. And I do want to mention too that there was a company in the 1930s called Modern Mascara who had a very similar container to our modern day mascara tubes, but the difference was the formula. Theirs was a cake formula, and you had to dampen the brush before inserting it into the tube. So modern day container in the 30s, just not automatic, not as easy to use as what we use today. In 1960 is when we see plastic compacts replace the original powder cases from the early 1900s. Now, if you want a really fascinating topic to research, look at powder containers. It's amazing to see the evolution of the powder container and how significant it was to a woman and what it signified in those early years. What I found particularly fascinating about the old powder compacts is that they were heavily influenced by the world around them, as with anything that we experience here today. And just to give you an example, in the 1920s, there were a lot of discoveries coming out of Egypt back to the US, and this inspired a lot of trends of the time. And you'll start to see that in 1920 compact designs. There were a lot of Egypt-inspired motifs. And then by the 1930s, these powder cases are being consistently updated to match the current season's fashion trends. And so if you ever look at vintage powder compact cases, pay special attention to the design that you're seeing, because that could indicate what time period it's from specifically. In 1971, Maybelline introduces the very first water-based mascara with their Great Lash formula. Prior to Great Lash being released, a lot of the mascaras were solvent-based. They repelled water and required an oil remover to get them off of your lashes. And that's why the water-based mascara became such a integral innovation in cosmetics history because of how easy it was to apply, how fast it dried, and then how easy it was to remove. Back in the 1970s, obviously you don't have as much competition as what we have today. And so when you think about the name Great Lash, it's rather simplistic in nature, but copywriting wasn't a big deal. Mass marketing wasn't as big a deal because competition was not as fierce as modern day cosmetics have become. And so they kept it very simplistic. And I think that's one of the biggest allures about this product, is that it doesn't have a fancy name. It doesn't have the most fancy packaging out there. It's just very humble. And I personally like that about it. It is said that one is sold every 2.5 seconds around the world, and it has also earned Allure Reader's Choice Award 20 years in a row. Also in the 1970s, we start to see an influx of newer cosmetic companies introducing darker shades for Black women in the market, because this is an area that was lacking prior to the 70s. A lot of the makeup was marketed towards those with pale complexions or tan complexions. The Black women were being left out. So it was nice to see that in the 70s, they started to recognize there are different skin tones, there are different complexions out here. And by the end of the 70s, it became commonplace to see darker skinned products being offered at every makeup counter. And today, we have incredible trailblazers. Just to mention a couple of them for you here: Rihanna, Pat McGrath, who have made it even easier for so many diverse skin tones to be able to find something that will complement their unique coloring. Finally, in 1981, we see the Personal Care Products Council donate $1 million to fund a national center for the development of alternatives to animal testing. Its mission is to promote and support research in animal testing alternatives, and to date, it has funded approximately 300 grants, totaling more than $6 million. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I cannot begin to tell you how much joy it brought me to not only do the research for this, but to compile it, organize it, and present it here for you today. So I hope that my joy for this topic has spilled over into wherever you're watching right now, and that you were able to feel it too. And if you have an idea for a video topic like this in the future to add to this series, share it below. There are no bad ideas, and I am open to any and all suggestions. Thank you for being here, for taking the time to watch. I want to wish you a beautiful day, a beautiful tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.